Are you ready for that big time Pro Studio sound? Well, let's add some 2-inch tape to your tracks today. Thanks to Universal Audio and the Studer A800 plugin, we can do just that. Let's check it out. Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Carlo Libertini and thanks for hanging with us today here at Music Marketing TV. Your home for all things audio, so don't forget to like and subscribe. Now, I'm really excited about this, because we're talking about the magic of analog tape. It's just adds saturation, punch, warmth, and that magical glue that just seems to elevate audio in all things musical. And for a good reason. Now, Universal Audio has given us the Studer A800, officially licensed, by the way. And if you've never worked with analog tape before, there's a reason why you've heard it already on countless hit albums and singles for decades, and still today. And now you can have that as well, thanks to the plugin version. Let's dive right in. I created a session. I looped some audio here. I've got some drums, some acoustic, electric guitars, some synths, and some bass. And we're going to play it. Basically, my approach right now is I'm going to treat my tracks as if they were going to have a touch of analog tape on each one. I put it on my drum bus. I put it directly on my bass track, directly on my acoustic guitar track, and directly on my electric guitar track, and even on my master bus. So it's cumulative. All right, let's check it out. Here we go. I love the graphical interface. Now, if you've ever worked with tape before, or you haven't, it's definitely has a sound, and I'm all over it. We're looking at the plugin right now on my master fader here. Now, it's probably best I have capital chambers on my snare. I'm using UAD Dream also on my bass guitar, and Lion on my electric guitar. So I'm using all Universal Audio plugins here is what I'm telling you. And the Studer is just a faithful reproduction of that amazing piece of hardware because everything's been faithfully captured. Now, just looking at it, let's do a quick overview, and then we're going to dive right in here. It delivers, as I mentioned before, that classic A800 analog warmth. It's got that rich harmonic and saturation and that amazing ability to glue things together. You could choose between the different tape speeds. You can even open up the hood for some further calibration. So it's not just tape you're adding. And that's the point I'm trying to express here. It is a creative element to your mixes. And I think that's the way we should start thinking about it. All right, let's go to our drums. I'm going to solo my drums, and here it is, for example, my drums without the Studer on. Let's bypass the Studer and the reverb. There we go. Well-recorded drums, sound great. So you might find yourself in the same scenario. You recorded drums, they sound great, but you want to elevate your mix now. I'm going to bring my reverb back on here on the snare, and let's hear that now with the Studer A800 on. Love what it does to a kick drum. Here it is again, bypassed. And let's bring it in. Not just about the volume change, even though that's pleasant as well. Wow. I mean, what it does to the kick drum is just phenomenal. Here it is again. This is on the drum bus without the Studer A800. Bring it in now. Amazing. All right, let's talk about some of the settings here and the parameters because, you can use this in a multi-track format. Like I said, I'm putting it on individual tracks, group buses, and a master fader here. You could use this selectively if you wanted just on 1 or 2 instrument tracks or your buses. But like I said, I wanted to add a touch of analog warmth, and a little does go a long way. So let's get into the primary controls here. Okay, so what we're looking at here, obviously, is the spinning tape area. Let's start right there, actually. Let's go to, let's see, I made some notes so we can keep track and cover a lot today. Okay, so at the heart of this, we have the different kinds of tapes. You've got a 250, and you'll see the real change right here, 456, 900, and the GP9. Basically, this represents, I would think of it as 4 generations of tape. This is the oldest kind of tape. And, you know, each one has a different kind of saturation and threshold and compression behavior and tonal characteristics. So it's important to think that the older tape may sound a little bit more, maybe bassy and warm. Something middle era might start to give you more pleasant mids. The 900 era, more modern tape, and the GP9, probably for the highest fidelity. So depending on what you're working with here, yes, you could already start to shape the total characteristics of your sound. Then from there, we have the calibration. And this is going to set the reference level at which the saturation kind of begins. You can see you've got a +3, +6, 7.5, and a 9. So basically a lower calibration, let's say you had it on 3, that's going to give you a more cleaner sound, if you will, less of the drive, the tonal saturation. I think probably a higher calibration, let's say something around 7.5 or 9 here, is going to give you more of that saturation in a more denser tone like we're hearing on the kick drum there. Plus, there's a little secret here. If you open up this feature right here, you can see this is an auto calibration feature, which you can activate on or off. So keep that in mind. We'll get more into this in a moment. Now you get your inches per second. Now, obviously at 7.5, you're going to have heavy coloration. You could turn it off if you want. It's a great way to start ABing your work and building upon there. 7.5 is typically renowned for its better low-end vibe, if you will. 15 has more balance, kind of in the middle of things. And 30 is the cleanest, flattest response with also the lowest noise because the tape is spinning quicker. Let's do that right now. Here's off. Here's that 7.5. You can hear that change drastically there, didn't you? Let's go to 15. Ready? Brightens things up a little bit. Let's go to 30. Here's 7.5. Let's go to 30. Ready? So now you can start to think like an engineer. Well, if you had something that was a little bit too bright, and instead of reaching for a traditional filter like an EQ, you could use the A800 here to tame the highs a little bit. Maybe somewhere around 15 inches per second might be the answer, like on a hi-hat or a real snappy snare or an acoustic instrument, for example. So this is where you can begin engineering your tone here. We've got a modern tape running at 15 right now, and the calibration's at +9. Here's without the A800. Here's with. Absolutely awesome. And then of course you get your input and output controls right here. And that's important to keep an eye on your VU meter. I gotta tell you, I have a soft spot for these VU meters because this is such a traditional analog style VU meter that's just been around for decades and decades. And it's nice to see it preserved even digitally here, thanks to Universal Audio. All right, now you've got through, which is a bit of a bypass that's here. Input. And you've got sync. And then repro. These are all going to add different types of mechanical behavior to your tracks. I think the best way to find out definitely is for yourself. I'm going to follow this up by opening the under the hood panel. Now, what this is going to do is, I think it's really interesting. because most of the time, most people don't want to get this geeky, but it's not that hard. For example, here you have the advanced tape modeling section with the NAB or the CC. This is like basically, I believe the NAB was a 60 cycle hum, and then in Europe, you would have a 50 cycle hum here with this feature. So you can even get so granular that you're working with the frequency of the voltage, if you will. And you know what? That could change things. So definitely keep that in mind. Now, I've never had to get that granular myself, but who's to say the more time you spend with this, the more love you give it, you wouldn't be interested in trying it out. And then you can have your added noise or off. Now, basically, these here, you get the driver, the sync EQ, Repro EQ. So if I'm in Repro, I probably will work with the Repro EQ. You can come here and you could tweak it if you want the high filter and the low filter right here. And that's going to be the same for each one. And plus you've got the noise section here. And when you're done with that, you can close it. And after you created settings that you like, I definitely recommend opening up your preset browser and then saving that file. For example, I could hit save here, and I typically do my initials, and I might call it something like drum bus, maybe 15 IPS, and then hit save as, and there we go. Save your presets as you go along. I think it's a great way to keep things a little bit more in order with good housekeeping. Plus, you could star them here as your favorites. That way you can quickly access them for further mixes. More on the presets in just a little while. What I want to do is get to some other instruments. Let's close this out and let's hear our bass guitar. Here's bass, and you can see I've got the Studer here at the top, my first insert, because it's recommended to put it as your first insert. Why? Because you want it to hit that analog tape first, and then let your further processing be a little bit more creative. But there are no rules. So you could try it both ways, but I do recommend, as a purist kind of view, to keep it as your first insert. All right, here's our bass guitar. Here's without. Here's with. Now, if we really wanted to fatten this up, what could we do? We could drop it down to 7.5 if we wanted. Maybe try an older form of tape here. I'm going to increase my output a little bit. Let's hear it now. It's got some of that drive. You hear that crispiness? Here's without. Here's with. Nice. And that was just too easy. Of course, we should reference that in our mix. So let's bring in our drums again. Let's solo our drums, and here we go. I love a little bit of grit in there on that bass guitar. Nice, really nice. Let's go to another instrument. I have it on my acoustic guitar here as well. And you can see I'm using Dancehall. It's that preset again, but we're at the 456 tape here and I'm at 15. Let's listen to this acoustic guitar. I'm going to solo just the acoustic guitar now. Let's go to this section here, and because we want to focus in on that. Here we go. All right. Bring up the volume a little bit. Let's try 250. That really warms it up right there. Here's without. Here's with. Add a little bit of weight to the mids there in a pleasant musical way. I find that this plugin sounds amazing on anything at all, but especially on acoustic instruments. I've had a lot of creativity and good luck with that. Let's go to our electric guitar. Let's solo this, and you can see I've got it right there. And So you should know by now, we're looking at this, well, with the red reel, I'm on a GP9, the most modern, and I'm running at +9 to calibration and at 30 IPS. So I want the brightest, clearest, most transparent here. And we can adjust that. I'm going to keep it on GP9. And let's bring it all together because I think this is really important. Here is, we're going to deactivate the A800 on each track that we started with. Here is the entire session without any warmth and saturation and musical love from the Universal Audio Studer A800 plugin. These are just the tracks without the plugin on active. Now let's activate the Studer A800 plugin on the drum bus, on the bass guitar, on the acoustic, on the electric, and on the mix bus here. Absolutely amazing. Now remember, it's not just about the change in volume because you can control that with the input level and the output level here. It's more about the tonal characteristics. We're gluing things together. We're adding a lot of those pleasing characteristics that you can only get from analog tape. And remember, this has been faithfully reproduced and licensed by Studer, to Universal Audio. So you're not going to get better than this in the digital realm. But because it's digital now, you can also choose, and this is something you couldn't do before in a real hardware analog studio. You would have one Studer running at the same settings for all the tracks. And you could do that. You could represent that in your sessions right now. Or you could have subtle differences in the analog behavior per track and even on your master bus, thanks to the innovations of digital. But of course, the best way is always to find out for yourself. Just visit the links below, download a demo today, and don't forget to stay busy and stay creative, everyone. And thanks for watching. But don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day.